We're joined now by Richard Gupton, Senior Vice President, Public Policy for the Ag Retailers Association. Richard, good to talk with you again. How are you?
Doing well. Good to talk to you, Mike.
I see we finally are getting some of the USDA nominees confirmed. I'm always amazed how long this process can take.
That's right. Yeah, it took some big hurdles for them to finally get the nominees over the finish line, but we're pleased that they've got some key positions filled at USDA and some of the other agencies, and look forward to working closely with them.
Yeah, Richard Fordyce and some others getting confirmed. So in this interim, while they've not been confirmed, how much does that slow things down while you're waiting for it?
Well, yeah, if you don't have the key political appointees in place for these positions, whether it's USDA or any of the other agencies, it really hamstrings the leadership and decision-making process, because any regulatory changes that take place, you need your team there to expedite decisions and the process. And with them not being there, it just slows everything down. And so, again, this is just the first step. I think they have others probably to fill over time, but it's important to get those filled in. I think during the previous Trump administration, there was also a delay in getting specific roles filled, and I think that hurt them, and I think they're trying to learn their lesson on the current term.
Yeah, because the issues don't go away; they just keep piling up, right? And the sooner you can get at it, the better.
That's right. Yeah, it slows everything down. They've got a pretty aggressive deregulatory agenda to try to reduce regulatory burdens and costs on the ag industry and other industries to provide some economic benefits to go along with the tax provisions that were in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So getting those people in place, like Dudley Hoskins just got confirmed as well. He was a senior staff and counsel at the Senate Ag Committee. Now he's over there at USDA. So getting them in place is kind of important to put forward the president's agenda and help America's agricultural industry.
Richard, you mentioned deregulation. I mean, one of the stated goals of this administration has been to cut red tape, cut regulations, feeling that the burden of regulation has slowed us down in a lot of areas. Are you seeing any of that red tape getting cut, or is it still just getting started?
No, you've seen, if you see Administrator Zeldin at the EPA, they've been fairly aggressive in looking at regulations that could adversely impact the industry. One of the first big announcements, if you saw, was on the energy front, to make sure it's an all-above energy strategy, make sure we increase our domestic production for oil and natural gas, and support biofuels. They've worked in concert with Congress when they passed the Congressional Review Acts to overturn those California waivers dealing with the electric vehicle mandates. So they're taking steps, and that's just one example. Also trying to improve regulations for the permitting process as well for projects. So all of those things are going to be helpful to provide some economic growth here and try to incentivize domestic manufacturing. One of those is a key announcement recently was potash being placed back on the critical minerals list, and we're trying to get phosphate added as well to make sure we can improve and increase domestic production of those products where we can and perhaps more supply chain stability.
Yeah, that's critical when we realize how and have seen what happens when you're so dependent on other countries for those inputs. We're talking with Richard Gupton, Senior Vice President, Public Policy for the Ag Retailers Association. Richard, you mentioned EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. How's that been working with him and his team at EPA? Have you noticed a difference from past EPAs, past administrations?
Yeah, we've had a good relationship with, like, let's say, the EPA Offset Pesticide Program. They're working hard on the registration review process for products. They've tried to shift scientists that are in other parts of EPA to help with the staffing at that agencies, because it's one of the few licensed to operate to getting pesticides registered. One of the big announcements was for dicamba over-the-top dicamba use. Hopefully that will be available for 2026. We submitted comments to make sure those labels are are usable for applicators, but they are trying to aggressively move forward to follow the law, follow the science, and get the new products registered, as well as dealing with the complications of the Endangered Species Act with all the label mitigation. So they're working closely with industry to try to make sure those measures not only protect endangered species, but also make sure the products are still there and viable and can be used by the industry.
Richard, I want to talk about a proposed merger in the rail industry, a proposed merger, Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern. Anytime, really, about in anything, there's a proposed merger, we hear concerns about less competition and higher pricing because of it. Are you concerned about this proposal, and what impact could it have on agriculture?
We are. I mean, it's this, but the one between Union Pacific and North and Southern, it's a proposed like $85 billion merger. It'd really be the first coast-to-coast rail rate operator in the U.S. And while they are claiming efficiency gains, there's concern for ag stakeholders, for retailers, farmers, and rural communities on the risk of impacting shipments, delay in shipments, degrading of services. And so we want to make sure that the Surface Transportation Board, as they're looking at these things, that it actually does enhance competition for the industry. Because if they have unchecked consolidation in the past, it's resulted in a degradation of services, increased costs and job losses, loss of services to rural areas and to retail locations. And so also that merger could potentially concentrate market power, and for our industry, it's what's called a captive shipper, particularly in these rural communities where you have fewer competitive options, and that's a concern for us.
So what's your gut feeling? Is it going to go through? Is the merger going to go through?
I'm not sure. I mean, there is supposed to be a rigorous evaluation in place at the Surface Transportation Board. There's who oversees these mergers. So if they follow the guidelines and, again, follow whether this merger actually enhances competition and not merely preserves competition, make sure it does not adversely impact key industries like the agricultural sector. We'll have to wait and see what Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern propose. They haven't submitted that yet to the Surface Transportation Board, but we want to make sure they have rigorous oversight. The president just dismissed one of the Surface Transportation Board members. Another one, there's membership on the commission that oversees this is expiring at the end of the year. So there's some uncertainty about what board members will be in place when any merger is there. But we plan to remain engaged heavily. We're part of the Rail Customer Coalition with ag industries and non-ag industries are concerned about the potential impact. So we have not taken a formal position in opposition to the merger yet, but we want to make sure, again, any outcome does not negatively impact shippers' rights, affordability, reliability, or rail safety.
Richard, I was going to ask you what priorities you're working on ag retailers there in Washington, D.C. with Congress, but I guess right now the number one thing is whether or not there's going to be a government shutdown.
That's right. Yeah, they have to each year have to have an annual funding bill. It's from October 1st to September 30th. The September 30th is coming up here fairly soon. The House just passed what they call a clean continuing resolution, basically to fund the government, these agencies at the same level for several months. And they're out this week. It's got pushed over to the United States Senate where they're debating that right now. If they need 60 votes in the Senate to get this thing passed, it's not looking very good that they're able to do that. So there's going to potentially be a government shutdown. We're hopeful that's not the case. And because that doesn't save any taxpayer monies. It's disruptive of services, including key programs like at USDA for farmers. And so we're hopeful that can be done, and they can get on to business of trying to get a farm bill done, a new highway reauthorization bill done, and some other key things that they really need to focus on to provide some stability and some certainty for our industry.
I thought this Congress might be in session more than what we've seen in the last several. but it seems like they've been off a lot, and I don't know, I find that frustrating. Sometimes we think, maybe we're better off they're not in Washington doing something, but still it's frustrating that they're not in session more, I think.
Yeah, they've usually when they're not there, most of the members should be or back in their state or district. I think for the time, particularly the beginning of this Congress, in the House and Senate, they've worked longer hours than the last previous Congresses to try to get some of these things done. But the problem is you've got such a narrow majority in both chambers, particularly in the House, where it's just a few votes here or there of whether something passes. You get the kind of gridlock that takes place. And so they can only do so much while they're there unless they can get some compromise. The one big beautiful bill of budget reconciliations, example of where they just need a bare majority to get that done. But under most circumstances, you can get a bare majority in the House to get it through, but in the Senate, you need 60 votes. And so they need some consensus to get any kind of compromise to get some of these key things done.
Hard to get compromise, hard to get bipartisan support for anything these days. Richard, good to talk with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Take care.